everybody.
Hey,
Hi,
everybody.
Cheryl.
Hi,
Oh my gosh, good to see everybody. I am spiritual medium Kellee White. And in case you've never been here before, I'm not only a spiritual medium, but guess what? I'm also a psychotherapist. And I help people navigate healing and transformation and connection on a soul level.
And you do it so well, Kellee.
Thanks, Cheryl.
And I'm Dr. Shirley. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I focus on helping people understand the why behind their thoughts, behaviors, and emotional patterns.
And may I say, you do an excellent job, Cheryl. And this is Psychology and the Soul. And there's a powerful quote by Carl Jung that Shirley and I just love. And that really sets the tone for today's conversation. Yeah. And this is the quote: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's what so many people experience. They feeling stuck or repeating patterns and they call it fate. Oh, it was fate. When really something deeper is running the show.
Right. From a psychological perspective, that something deeper is the subconscious mind, which governs, say, roughly about 95% of our thoughts, our behaviors, and our emotional responses. These patterns aren't random. They're learned, they're conditioned, they're reinforced over time. The brain develops between 0 and 6.
Yeah.
And our environment kind of sets the tone and really plants 3 seeds. The seeds of self-esteem. Am I lovable? Am I worthy? Am I deserving? The seeds of, can I trust others to be there? And does the world feel like a safe place or an unsafe place? And that's the foundation that's built, given your environment, and your home starts to build on that foundation.
Wow. And from a spiritual perspective, this is where awareness begins, because once you see what's been operating unconsciously, you now have the ability to change it.
Yes. Your mother always told me, awareness is the first step to any kind of change. Oh, she said, awareness alone doesn't change, but right. You need that awareness in order to elicit change. Because how can you change something you're not aware of?
Absolutely. And just because you have an awareness doesn't mean that you change. You're just aware of it. It takes energy and action to change. Yeah, exactly. As my brother would say, action, Jackson, it takes energy.
Exactly. So if we break this down simply, the conscious mind is logical, analytical, and goal-oriented, but only accounts for about 5 to 10% of our mental activity. The subconscious mind, however, is emotional, automatic, and pattern-based, and that drives about 90 to 95% of our behavior.
Oh my
God. That's the piece that we may not always be aware of, which is what in therapy or, spiritual sessions and stuff we can bring into our awareness.
Yeah. And so consciously, you might want love and you might want success or you might want peace, but subconsciously, you may believe I'm not safe, I'm not worthy, and that difference is everything.
Absolutely. That difference is everything, because the subconscious will always override the conscious mind. I have a beautiful example of this. I had a woman in my office who always was attracted to men who weren't available. And she just wanted someone who was available, who wasn't afraid of intimacy, and who, just could be vulnerable in that way. And so I said, okay. I said, we work, since I work with the body, I said, okay. I said, imagine a man, you can blur his face, you don't know what he looks like, but looking at you in your eyes and saying to you, I love you. And do you know what her body went? Her body went like this. I'm exaggerating the movement, but her hands went up and her face kind of turned and she pushed back. So that's what she wanted. Right? Unconsciously, she couldn't even imagine having it because of her childhood trauma. And
did you point that out?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so that was our entry point. That's where we started working, because subconsciously was a very different story than what she was saying consciously.
Wow.
Yeah. So, subconscious beliefs are primarily formed in early childhood. During the time the brain operates in a theta state, which is highly suggestible. So children absorb experiences without filtering. They're absorbing their environment. They're absorbing their caretakers, how attuned a caretaker is to them. They're absorbing emotional experiences. They're absorbing repetition. And from that, if you're not getting your needs met, it would be too threatening for a child to think, oh my God, there's something wrong with these two, because they keep it's about survival. They keep the child alive. So the only way to gain some kind of control is there's got to be something wrong with me. And if I can figure that out, then they can give me what I need. They can be nice to me. They can attune to my needs. They can, and so that's where the seed gets planted, and it gives a child, this is all unconscious, of course, it gives a child a semblance of control, because can you imagine how out of control a child would feel if it really understood that there was something wrong with the parents?
Yeah. It'd be very scary.
Right. So the seeds of, am I safe? Am I not safe? Am I enough? Am I not enough? Yeah.
Wow. And those beliefs don't disappear. They actually become the lens of which we experience life. Yeah. And so what people call patterns are really a subconscious program that plays out. And it plays out in everything, what your work is, what your career is, what your relationship is. It plays out in every part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, it's interesting because, Shirley, if we think about the law of attraction, I mean, that was a big thing, and this is where the law of attraction often gets misunderstood, because people think, if I think positively, I will attract what I want. But that's only part of the story there.
Right. Well, that's because the subconscious mind doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you believe is true.
Exactly. So you can say, I want abundance. It's up there with your person, I want love. You can say, I want abundance. But if your subconscious belief is money isn't safe, I don't deserve success, you will continue to attract experiences that match that belief.
Yeah. So it creates an internal conflict, what we call cognitive dissonance, because you want something, but your belief is something different.
Yeah. And this is why awareness is so important. So not forcing a change and not bypassing, but actually seeing what's underneath. And from a spiritual and energetic perspective, the subconscious isn't just psychological, it's vibrational. That's really important to know, because your beliefs don't just live in your mind. They live in your energy field and your body, your frequency. So whatever you're holding subconsciously becomes what you're emitting. So if you are holding fear, it's coming out, fear. And then it also emits what you are attracting. And so that's why people can get stuck in patterns even when they do all the right things.
Right. Exactly. That's why awareness is so important. And this aligns more than, people realize with psychology, because it's what we call energy. In a clinical sense, often shows up as nervous system states. What you're calling energy, we view as nervous system states, emotional memory, somatic experiences, and while we all emit energy, our body also, can send a message.
Shirley, can you explain emotion or somatic responses?
Well, it's like if I'm living in fight or flight, I might be walking around like this, without realizing that this, I did an exercise with a woman today where, the mind connects with the body through the vagus nerve, and it connects to the heart, the viscera, and 20% of that information goes brain to body. 80% of the information travels body to brain. So if we say, relax, you'll be fine, it's only a 20% signal strength. But if I go from here to here, or I very consciously put my body in a relaxed state, the body is communicating to the mind, you're okay. I felt it today. I had her first exaggerate this, and then we did this, and all of a sudden her whole, her whole energy calmed. So we can do it very purposefully. And we also don't know, facial expressions. The nervous system of someone else in a split second, can looks at someone else and either feels threatened, so they pull away, or safe and they come towards.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, Shirley. So when we're talking about shifting your life, we're not just talking about changing your thoughts. We're talking about changing your internal state, changing what feels familiar, changing what your system recognizes as safe. And because the subconscious will always choose familiar over desired.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's also because the brain feels safer with what's familiar, even if what's familiar isn't the best thing for you.
Right.
You will recreate a familiar energy. So if it's an energy of betrayal or mistrust, that's what we'll recreate, because that actually feels safer, because in a way it's predictive.
Mm-hmm.
It's something new.
Yeah. Wow.
So from a psychological standpoint, real rewiring happens through repetition of new experiences, regulating the nervous system, creating safety in new patterns, small consistent shifts over time, not intensity, but consistency. And that's what we do also in practice. To gauge where someone's at, I'll say, imagine, just like I did with that woman, imagine a guy loving you and see what the automatic subconscious reaction to it is. And that's where we work.
Wow. Wow. And from a spiritual and an energetic perspective, that looks like awareness first. Okay. Then interrupting the reaction, and then embodying that, and then language shifts, or even not just language shifts, but a new way of lens, a new lens to view things, and an energetic alignment.
Right. And to be with, in somatic therapy, we slow things down. So if I'm imagining something, or even if I go to an environment and I feel uncomfortable, to sit with that. Actually, the nervous system regulates, and that's how, when I notice that someone is calming in the office, I'll say, "What are you noticing?" To really expand that sense of calming when their nervous system has been so used to feeling unsafe and threat. The nervous system needs to get used to calming states and used to, hey, I can be safe in a calm state. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, this is important because rewiring isn't about becoming someone new. It's about updating what your system has learned to accept. And we can rewire the brain by having these experiences and really anchoring them in the body and slowing it down.
And spiritually, it's giving yourself permission to experience something different. Because one of the biggest misconceptions about changing the subconscious is that it should happen quickly. Like, this is such a world we want it right now. This does take some time. And also that awareness alone is not enough, because it's just not.
No, it's not. Because we can be aware of things, but then how do we change it?
Right.
How do we, that is the process. And that's the process that goes very, very slowly. Insight doesn't equal change. You can understand your patterns and still repeat them.
Oh, we see. How often do we see that? I'm never going to pick that type of guy again. Kaboom.
And then what happens is then we add something, because now we're mad at ourselves that I did the same thing. How could I not have seen that this person was like that? How can I, a partner?
How did I fall again for the pattern?
Exactly. And so now we're adding self, anger towards the self to the equation, which is never helpful. Right. Lasting change comes from repetition, comes from emotional experience, comes from regulating your nervous system when you're feeling dysregulated, and it comes from consistency.
Absolutely. And people try to think their way out of patterns, but the subconscious responds to what feels familiar, not logical.
No. And as I said, we can tell ourselves something. It's only 20% strong. We need to feel it in order to start to rewire the brain. Yeah. And that's why motivation doesn't last. The system always returns to what it knows.
Wow.
We can feel motivated in a moment and choose to do something different. And that's where we need to feel what that feels like.
Right. And so this is really important, especially in spiritual work, because there's a difference between healing, really deep healing, and then bypassing. Oh, I have an awareness. I'm there now. No, you're really not.
Yeah.
You can't bypass this.
Absolutely. And avoiding emotions reinforces patterns, because we're not allowing ourselves to sit with uncomfortable emotions, and they're not easy to do on your own. I would really encourage someone to do it with a therapist or with a friend, to really sit with uncomfortable emotions and because emotions always pass. They're like waves in the ocean. Sometimes they can feel like a tsunami, but they will always pass. So unless you allow your nervous system to experience that, we tend to want to shut everything down when we're at the top of the emotion. Oh my God. So we get busy. We make a phone call. Sometimes drugs, alcohol.
Right at the top of the emotion. Good point.
Right? Yeah. Because it feels the most uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But if we just allow that to start happening, then not only the mind is aware, wow, I got through that, but the nervous system also starts to know that things pass, that emotions pass.
Yeah. Boy, and that real change means the feeling piece, which is what you're talking about, the awareness, of course, and then the choice. Do I continue on this same road, or do I now make different choices?
Yeah, because sustainable change requires both emotional processing and subconscious rewiring.
Right. Well, and that's why we have a really special guest tonight, everybody. And this is why Annie's work is so powerful. And let me just tell you before we bring her on, we have a guest. She was on my show with James and I don't know, a while back. And her name is Annie Lisa. And she's the author of an amazing book called What My Sister Told Me After She Was Murdered. So you can imagine, she's a transformational speaker. She's a spiritual teacher. She's a light worker, and she's a PsychCade preferred facilitator, which helps you access your subconscious beliefs to create the life you want and in a world we all want to live in. So Annie, please hop on because we're so excited to have you here.
Yes.
Hi, Annie.
Annie.
So glad you could join us. Annie, let's start by telling a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your background and what led you into this great work. Oh, we can't hear you, Annie. You are muted. Unmute yourself, Annie, and come on down.
Oh, you'll hear me now.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you so much for having me on your show, Kelly.
I'm glad you're here.
Shirley. So I spent most of my life in the corporate world up until about 5 years ago as a marketer, and eventually settled into a copywriter for advertising. And during that time, I began to notice that I kind of had my spiritual awakening, if you will, when I noticed them outside and being repeated back to me. And this kind of expanded really big for me. And as I noticed, go ahead.
I was going to say, give an example. What do you mean by you notice your thoughts?
Sure. So I might be struggling with something or opining over something. And, let's say I would turn on the radio and it was literally like repeating everything I thought. Or I would ask somebody about something and they would say, oh yeah, they would say, for example, I got this in Arizona, and it would be like, wow, that's really strange. And then I have to pay attention to that. And then somebody else would mention Arizona. Then I would be assigned a section to write, and it was golf in Arizona. And the next thing I know, I'm in Arizona, and that's where I meet my husband. So it started with very tiny things that, everybody has this happen, right? But then they go, oh, that's just a coincidence. But my experiences began to become so dynamic. And then I started, getting messages from departed loved ones, not in the way that Kelly does. I am not a psychic medium, but just getting very purposeful answers and departed loved ones letting me know that they heard me in very extraordinary ways, not like seeing a butterfly and thinking it's my grandmother. And I'm not saying if you saw a butterfly, it wasn't your grandmother. What I'm saying is these kinds of experiences were so incredible that absolutely a skeptic would have to stop and probably become a believer. So as this was happening with me, my younger sister, Teresa, that I wrote this book about, who's behind me as Wonder Woman, was having her own experience as a Western trained doctor of internal medicine who went on with much postdoctoral training. And it's kind of like a synthesis of Kelly, and that as a kind of the reverse, though, as a Western trained doctor, or I know that you were a psychotherapist and a medium almost at the same time. But for Teresa, it was a journey. And in this journey as a Western doctor that went on into various kinds of medicine, from integrative and functional, and, I could go on about my sister, she was making the connection between her patients' emotions and the physical manifestations in their body, and stopped using prescription drugs unless you were going to die, and she went to energy medicine, which is a hell of a journey for any doctor, but especially 12 years ago. We were both so excited about what we were experiencing. We felt compelled to share it. That if we could share this with the world, this whole idea of energy and emotions, which we're talking about right now, would be less of an esoteric conversation and become more of a catalyst to help awaken people to dormant aspects of themselves and perhaps provide a more comprehensive view of the nature of reality. And then on a magical sisters weekend, and of all places, this really cracks me up because it was not Sedona, Arizona, and it was not Mount Shasta. It was Newark, New Jersey, of all places.
It is kind of funny.
Who would have thought? Yeah. We had a weekend of messages coming in, divine guidance coming in that was unmistakable, total recall, similar epic dreams. And we left the weekend knowing that this was actually, our passions was actually a much larger call to action to help awaken and expand human consciousness, to understand what we're capable of. And we didn't know, this was 11, 12 years ago, to save the world. And I know that sounds like a lofty mission, but that's what we felt. And look where we are right now. So before we could figure out what we were supposed to do, waiting for more messages, my sister was murdered 9 months to the day of that epic understanding. 9 months to the day, which is an outrageous metaphor for birth, and it really underscored, and it was yet another confirmation. So after my sister told me who murdered her, she was on to the next order of business, and she was down with, we're going to get you the mission. And the mission ended up being this work that I do to awaken and expand human consciousness. And our ticket is through the subconscious, and by helping individuals break these patterns and learn to love themselves unconditionally, right? Because when we're happy and we're joyful and we're loved and we're safe and we're having relationships that we want and we're being the creative beings that we are, we're beaming high vibrations. And we can really start to love others unconditionally and love our neighbors. And we know, Kellee, right? Love is an amazing vibration. It's transformative. All things are possible with love. So the key ultimately is love. And that's the larger part of my mission, to create this ripple effect and really start to change this world from the inside, right? The microcosm, we're creating the macrocosm by changing our internal world. Yes, we can and we will change this outer experience. It's the law of attraction. It's the quantum theory, but whatever you want to call it, we are creating our reality internally and ultimately externally.
Wow. That was powerful.
I know, I'm tired. I always get so excited about talking about it.
I bet. Yeah. So can you share more about the work that you do and the kind of, transformations that you help people experience? So what would be an example?
So like all the things that you were talking about before, right? People who are anxious, people who are depressed, people who want better relationships, people who want to get a better job, people who want to stop procrastinating, people who have had trauma, abuse, addiction. The sky's the limit on what people walk in the door for. Again, they have to have the conscious awareness that there's something that they want to change. And so any one of these, you can come in with pretty much anything that you would go to see a hypnotherapist, a psychotherapist. It's just that the work is done in a completely different way.
Well, so, for people that are new to this, and I know you do Psych K, can you explain what Psych K is?
Sure. First, I want to explain what the name means, because when I opened up my LLC, the banker thought I was psychic and he wanted to know if I could see his aura. So, Psych K, while Psych K is a combination of very ancient tools and new age science, It's not about being psychic. Although I'll say that once you start to go up and you start to clear out the stuff, that's Kellee, that
Yeah.
stuff just comes in, right? Because our vibes are up.
Yeah.
So Psyche stands for psyche, and the K is for the key to sustainable change. And it is all about accessing the subconscious to remove blocks that are preventing us from living the lives that we want. Like you said, it seems like no matter how much we try, we just keep getting stuck. So Psyche has been around for over 40 years. And it's been taught in about 60 different countries and translated in about 25 different languages. It's been taught to hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And it's getting more and more well-known, kind of like, 35 years ago, most people in the Northeast didn't know what Reiki was. And now everybody knows what Reiki is. And I feel like, more and more people will know what Psyche is and how it works and why it works.
How does it differ from traditional talk therapy or other modalities? Like, what would a session look like?
Okay. It's very, very, very different. It's very different than anything that you guys were talking about. So I just want to say this. I think the most important thing here that people need to understand today is that the subconscious is calling our shots without our conscious permission. Right.
Yeah.
And I always say to people, that's my goal, is for you to understand that how you choose to rewrite your subconscious, because that's where the key is. That's where the self-sabotage is. That's when there's not alignment between the conscious wishes and the desires and the subconscious programs. But people can choose how they want to manage that. I use Psyche because it is fast and it's simple and it's powerful. It's what Dr. Bruce Lipton uses, who is another rock star in the world of quantum physics and the subconscious. And it's literally what my sister told me after she was murdered. Psyche it's very different in that, unlike traditional therapy, where, people feel like, and also a belief that you need to know the cause of the problem in order to solve it. In Psyche, that's not the case. You only need to want to know what you want. Now, that's not to say that things might be revealed, because the space is very energetically charged, and people find themselves saying things that they had no idea they were going to say. And I'm sure, Dr. Shirley, that happens in your sessions. You're going down one road, right? And then all of a sudden, it's like this domino effect. All of these things are interrelated.
Right. Yeah.
But it's very magical because the partner has all the answers. I facilitate this very powerful process, and there is a permission protocol involved. And that's, we get permission from the higher self on whether or not it's appropriate to move forward with what this person wants, because the higher self knows the whole story. The other real cool thing is, well, we don't need to go into any stories about anything. We literally only need to know, what do you want instead? So I basically sit there and I say, hey, Kellee, what made you want to come in today? Like, what was the impetus? And well, you might start saying 20 things, and I'll say, okay, but if we could just solve one thing today, what would bring you the most peace? And we go there. And again, things may overlap. And we start with that. And I just sit back and I listen, and I write down any self-limiting belief that I hear. And they might say, well, my husband doesn't respect me. And sometimes I don't think I'm even worthy of getting on this new job. And I want to do it, but I'm afraid I won't have enough money. And then I come back and I read, and when they're done, I read each one and I say, well, instead of feeling like you're not going to have enough money to start this new job, what do you want instead? Oh, I have more than enough money when I work, if I leave my job. Okay. And we do the balance. And the balances are done. This is the other difference of Psyche is verifiable because we use the muscle testing.
Right. Okay. Can you explain to everybody what muscle testing is?
Sure. Yeah. Muscle testing is the coolest thing. It's like like God's miraculous design in the human body is that we all have this internal lie detector. And just like my subconscious is making me, talk and move my hands and beating my heart, the subconscious is well, aside from wanting to keep you safe as well, if I were to say something that was not true, as you said earlier, Dr. Shirley, your subconscious knows the truth.
Mhm.
So you can all you want, but your subconscious knows the truth. So if somebody was with me in person, they would have their arm out to the side. So let's just say it would be like this, for example. In
Mhm.
Psych K, we have a very specific position that we use. And if someone was with me, if Kellee, if you were with me and I said, say my name is Kellee with meaning and confidence, and I tried to push down on your arm and said, be strong, your subconscious would be able to maintain the strength while you're saying that, because it's cohesive. There's alignment because your name is Kellee. So it can say, okay, yes, and it won't give. It'll maintain strength. But if you were to say my name is John, it wouldn't be able to, it's well, that's not true. And it would kind of, like I always say, short circuit. The electricity would go out of it. So it's an incredible navigation tool. And
Yeah.
it is the foundation of the work that we do within Psych K.
I have to say, the first time it was done for me, I thought, okay, this isn't going to, and I try to hold it strong, and it blew my left brain away. It really, really works.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true. And Psych K, by the way, is spelled P-S-Y-C-H, like psych, like psychologist, psych, P-S-Y-C-H dash K, like K for Kellee.
Right.
And so, Annie, how do you believe that people get blocked subconsciously?
Well, it's exactly what you guys were talking about. And I think the only other thing that I understand is also, and maybe you just didn't get there, was in addition to that real powerful window, which I think some
Like
scientists
0
are
to 6.
at 0 to 6 or 0 to 7 or the third trimester, during any emotionally charging moment in their life, whether it could be something as simple as walking into class in high school, and tripping or splitting your pants in gym class, or something more emotionally charging like being in the middle of your parents' divorce, or worse off, being the victim of violent crime or victim of violence. And of course, that could happen at any time. And so those blocks, as you say, they begin to create our pattern, just all those downloads, right? Things that beliefs. We have a storehouse of beliefs in within our subconscious that we didn't choose.
Right.
And that storehouse of belief is, I love this example that Bruce Lipton gives. Everyone who's ever driven a car has had the experience of getting home after work, and they're like, I don't remember getting here. How did we get here? Right? Remember what happened to that house with that ugly, black and purple door? And I don't remember going past the coffee shop. And that's because, like you said earlier, Dr. Shirley, it's these habits and instructions and repetition. It plays the program. You don't have to think, how do I drive my car? How do I get home? And so this is the big mind blow whenever I talk about this in presentations, is in the same exact way that your subconscious uses, remembers habits and instructions and can just rattle them off without you thinking about it. It chooses all of these beliefs that you didn't choose, this storehouse of emotions, and uses them to choose your partners, your jobs, whether or not you think you're beautiful, whether or not you think you're loved, whether or not you're anxious or sad or depressed. And the whole while, we don't even know that it's happening. We don't even get it.
Yeah. Well, there goes the young, quote that Kellee, that you mentioned at the beginning, our subconscious mind is running the show and we think it's fate.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And especially you'll hear spiritual people say that, well, it was a fated event, or it may not have been a fated event.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of choices and we can choose. And this is what's so exciting about being alive right now, right?
Yeah.
Is there's so many quantum tools out there and people can really change. And it always blows my mind. I see people change, just like you saw that woman in your session, Dr. Shirley, you just got her to do this. And things started to shift for her. And things happen very quickly with Psych K. And I always say, I'm living proof. Okay. I am living proof that we are not victims of circumstance. We truly are masters of our destiny, that we create our reality. It's how I went from, look, trauma. My sister was,
Right.
she was my best friend, like
Yeah.
in ways that I can't even, she was like the love of my life.
Yeah.
And how do you go from grief to joy?
Yeah.
I mean, and I did. And how
Trauma and the trauma.
aspect in my life, yeah, every aspect, all the other things too. I used to be the biggest procrastinator. I used to get depressed every February. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And all of a sudden I'm able to leave my job and write a book and start a business and like going on stages and all these things that I always knew what I wanted to do, but my subconscious kept sticking me in these patterns. So I just released them one by one by one and went up the spiral.
And that's the process that you facilitate with, that you help people through a Psych-K session.
Yes.
Is you find what the unconscious belief is, and then you help them let go of it.
Exactly. We just do the process. They end up identifying it because they just talk, and they don't. Once I read it back, these are all your limiting beliefs, and then we just turn it into a positive first person present statement. Well, I don't feel like I'm loved. I am loved. And Kellee, you said it before. Things like I am loved, I am safe, and those fundamental things that we need, like when we're children, right? Those foundational beliefs.
Yeah.
The consequences of those beliefs are so far reaching. I mean, they really do. They set the stage, just like you said.
Yeah.
And so when you can sometimes somebody will come in an hour and a half and they do one goal statement, I am safe. And it changes up the game for them in a big way. Like it's like a domino effect. Things just start to change in their lives because the law of attraction now is starting to work. Their vibration has changed, experiences change.
Yeah. So I'm curious, is it through, and I'd love to do a session of Psych-K just to understand it. So is it true because you change your thought, but that doesn't necessarily change how you feel and change everything. So how does it go from like A to B?
Okay. Great question. Thank you for asking that. So from a neurological perspective, you're creating a whole brain state, which I'm not going to get into, but I know you know what that is. It's when the right and left hemispheres are cohesive and they're talking. From a vibrational perspective, right? We have just rewritten the subconscious like this. And I know that seems like for traditional science, but it's like that. So how does the feeling come in? It does. And it's extraordinary. Here's what we do though. And that's why I'm so glad you asked this question. It's kind of like downloading an app. Right. So person finishes a session. I go, look, here's what we did. I am loved. I am respected. I am safe. I finish what I start. Whatever the goals come up, whatever the goal statements are. So now we have to take action step because we just downloaded all these apps into your body. The I am loved. These are all apps. What happens if you download an app on your phone and you don't open it? It's never going to play. Yeah. So the action step is key, and it's always going to be something that you couldn't do before that you're going to try now. And people, they always finish a session with, I'm like, now what else are you feeling when you think about this situation? Well, I feel good, but you know what? It's like we took a boulder out of the way and now this is revealed. So when that dies down, then we go into the action steps, and I ask them to think of something that they couldn't do before, and they're going to do it now. Well, before I couldn't speak up to when my husband would, whatever. And now I know I can say to him, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm going to go in the other room. So great. There's your action step. And with every single action step, and sometimes it's really subtle. I love myself. So what couldn't you do before? Well, I wasn't doing things like taking a bubble bath and giving myself a mask. Can you do that now? Yeah, I'm going to do it. Great. Do it tonight. And every single action step is, and notice how you feel. And I've had people call me at night, notice how you feel, because you got to feel it, right? Yeah. And it's always, oh my gosh, before I could never do that before. I'm blown away by, my own life and some of the things that I've seen with clients and colleagues and their clients. It's been absolutely amazing.
How long is a session with you? And also, how do you do this across the world? Do you do this?
Yeah.
Do you have a referral place for people?
So, so people can reach me on my website, which is AnnieLisaLife.com. I do sessions in person and I do sessions remotely. So if people are wondering, how do I muscle test when you're on the screen? It's because there is a surrogate process with Psyche where it's kind of like, when the Apple guy comes into your computer, or and they're moving your mouse around. I'm moving your mouse around, but not without spirit's permission. Like if I was to do a session and I had to get into surrogation with Dr. Shirley, I would ask for permission. It's safe and appropriate for me. It's safe and appropriate for Dr. Shirley. And then I would muscle test. My name is Dr. Shirley, and I'm going to get a strong muscle test. And it's wild. Wow. It's wild. So we can do this. And I have people that I've never met. And then I have people who live maybe 2 or 3 hours away. My guy from India, so he also lives in Massachusetts, but he always says, Annie, if I'm here, I'm going to come to see you, Annie. Oh. He loves to. So some people like to be in the studio and they want to feel the muscle test. But the most important thing is the way they feel when they're doing a balance and when they're done, which is basically creating a whole brain state, whether you're doing it physically with your body or through different statements that are opposing and come together. It's about creating the whole brain state.
Wow. How many, and I get asked this question, it can be frustrating because it really depends on the person and what they're dealing with. But is this like kind of ongoing therapy, or is it?
It's generally, it could be a one and done for a lot.
Wow.
Now, it's amazing. Now, let me just say this, because you're right. You want to undersell and then over deliver, right?
Right.
That's not to say that some people will buy a session of 5. And I only offer that not because you're going to need 5 sessions to, do something. I kind of look at it like this. How long have you been on the train in this direction? And how fast is it going? Right? So if you've been on this train for 15 years and now it's already, manifested into a disc in your back or an ulcer and it's going 250 miles an hour, one session might slow the train down, The experience is changing. And then we can get it to turn in the direction that you want it to. And then, I'm not a doctor, so you're still going to go see your doctor. But, oh, wow, this is really interesting. We see major improvements because, when we don't get rid of an emotion, it will manifest in our body and it will make us sick. So that's the deal. Yeah. So for some, I've had people who have done one session and I've never heard from them again. I'll check on them a year later. And they'll be like, oh my God, yeah, everything's, whatever. And then I have people who have had serious trauma and they've had 4 sessions or 5 sessions. And some of them, I encourage everyone to go and learn how to fish and at least just do the basic workshop. Just do the basic Psyche so you can work with yourself and fish for the rest of your life. And you don't ever have to see me again unless you want to, but you can go do you.
So part of a session would include that, then teaching others how to do this.
I'm not an instructor, so that's a separate thing. And there's only 42 instructors in the entire world.
Oh my God.
Because it's very we don't want to dilute the work and we don't want it to be, so you got to keep it sacred and you got to be able to maintain your instructors. I don't say maintain, that sounds cruel, but you want to be able to have a community that you can really stay in communication with. But I want to answer the other question because I also have a client who I talk about all the time who's probably done 30 sessions with me. Because he begged and I'm like, listen, this is not therapy. If you want to talk, I've got some great people that, you can work with that I know, and they're phenomenal. No, it's like, okay, so why do some people get stuck and why are some people able to move forward? And I know you both know what secondary gains are. Yeah. Right. So what's the payoff? So when that happens with somebody and they're coming back again and then coming back again, I go, okay, So let's say, for example, this person who was having depression and anxiety to the point where it was debilitating, they weren't able to run their business. They weren't able to solve the issues with their marriage. They were just miserable and on the couch. And when I tell you, we did every balance under the sun that you could ever think of. I said, okay, what happens if you're not depressed anymore and you're not anxious anymore and you get to get off and you get to do your job and and you're happy in this? First answer, well, then I'd have to get off my couch and live my life. So the payoff was depression and anxiety allow me to be safe from the world. And then you go there. And I will say, this is the one client he definitely made leaps and bounds, and then he always snapped back. And that is definitely not the norm. Most people, I mean, I had someone who was, raped, sexually abused, institutionalized on all kinds of meds, off of everything. Okay. We did 5 sessions. Okay. This is her whole life. She was 40 something with 2 kids, married. Okay. Came to one of my events. I cried because she stood up and gave as a live testimonial. And I was just like blown away. And then she said, I do want to see you for something else that's kind of nagging. And I said, why don't you just go to New Jersey? There's a wonderful facilitator, Joanne Sweeney, anybody in the Northeast, who is phenomenal. And she did. And people walk in that workshop like I did many years ago, and they walk in on a Friday and they're a different person when they leave on Sunday, and they can't believe it.
Wow. How long, I was going to ask you, how long is the training?
So for the basic workshop, which is just enough that will allow you to work with yourself. Yes, you can work with your family, but you got to always work with yourself first. You're not going to be able to open a practice or anything. It's 3 days.
Okay.
It's 3 days from 9 to 6, and it's very intense. So you're balancing all weekend. That's why you don't come out the same person, because you're working with partners in real time. And there's also is an online version, which only allows you to, I don't want to talk about it because I don't know it well, but allows you to work on yourself, but you can't work with people with you. You wouldn't know. You could just do online. Right. You only learn how to work with yourself. And I believe, nope, you don't learn surrogation. That's it. So, and then there's many years if you want to become a practitioner and you want to work it. And it's, Psyche is my life. It's what I do with me when I get up and I'm like, why am I in a bad mood today? That's why I'm in a bad mood. I immediately do a balance and just get rid of the bad juju and I move on. And it's just,
so from what I hear you saying, it almost helps you almost have like a direct line to your unconscious, to understand what's happening, why you're having that thought, why you woke up in a bad mood. What I hear you saying is that initially, if people don't know, you're taking notes on the limiting thoughts, and that's what's stuck in their unconscious they may not be fully aware of. And so you bring that to their attention.
Yes.
But it seems like from what you're describing, that Psyche is almost like a direct line into your unconscious. So you can be aware of what.
Yes. Well, the muscle testing is the muscle testing, right, gives you that ability. And the process is a direct line in rewriting it. Yes. The process. And the other thing, so there's an Inuit word, and it's sumatak, and it gets me emotional every time I say it because it's powerful. And it is a word that means, and this is what we are as Psyche facilitators, we are the keeper of the sacred space in which wisdom is revealed. And that wisdom is the partner who's sitting in the room. Their wisdom is revealed. Amazing things happen. Sometimes they'll be like, I don't know if that was strong. I don't know if that was weak. And people get in their head. I'm like, don't think about it. Just do it. Because even if we got the muscle test wrong, Psyche is a very spiritual process, and it will always bring you right back again. If that ever happens, it's like, it's foolproof.
I have a question. So that fellow that you were talking about that would snap back, he wouldn't really leap forward. Is that because of generational trauma?
I mean, it's funny you say that. And I don't know the answer to that question. Could it be? Sure. I don't know if that's if that's your wonderful gifts tapping in here, because it was something he said repeatedly.
Oh, wow.
Like everybody in my generation,
Yeah,
everybody in
that's
my
what it was.
generation. And
Yeah.
so what did we do? I release all of, the generations. I cut all that. We did those balances. Like, okay. And you guys are asking the best questions ever. So that's another great point to bring out, because sometimes if someone comes back with the same thing and we really can't find a secondary gain, there's a wonderful protocol that we have where we get messages, right?
Mhm.
Because everything. So it's either a message about a situation or a message about a condition in the body, a physical condition.
Mm.
And we muscle test that it's, of course, safe and appropriate, always.
Mhm.
And we muscle test that this situation, we don't name it because we don't want to give it any energy. We identify it, and then we call it the situation or the condition, has a message for Kellee. We muscle test. Yes, Kellee, there's a message here for you. Okay. Conscious knowledge is required, meaning you need to hear what it is. Okay. And then we muscle test that you know what it is.
Right.
And if you don't, which generally, if we've exhausted everything, you don't, then we start to muscle test. The message can be found, and you can use, I've got all these books here, The Emotion Code. You can use Louise Hay. You can use Sacred Contracts. I use some incredible goal statements that Rob, I think he worked on them with Bruce, came up with, that are in the areas of self-esteem, relationships, personal power. And we say the message can be found in one of the categories of change: muscle test, strong. It's in this category, weak. It's in this category, strong. It's between numbers 1 and 5. We don't even need to read the goal statements. We just need to read the numbers because they're all in the field. And the subconscious is connected to the field. And we get messages and we exhaust until all the, and that is wild. That's wild. And again, I always go for the low hanging fruit. What do you know? Because you have all the power. And Psyche is about empowering you. We want people to understand that they're empowered and not, victims. So that's a resort that I use when someone is really stuck and like, okay, we're going to go here. And wow.
Well, thank you so much, Annie. This is fascinating. I mean,
Yes,
Shirley's all ready to sign up.
wow, I'm intrigued.
We've had social workers, we've had chiropractors, psychologists. The head of our health and well-being is a doctor of osteopathic medicine. He's amazing. The most amazing human being from Switzerland, Duccio Locati. Love him. And so many types of practitioners come in and they bring this tool in and they bring it in their practice, and it blows it up in a different way. And, sometimes it resonates with people, and sometimes the practitioner won't even say what they're doing. They just kind of bring it in.
Wow. Well, listen, Shirley and I are going to finish up. Can you come back? We want you to come back another time. You've been your guest. Oh my God, I learned so much. So stay in the green room and wait for us after the show. Okay. We'll be there in just a few minutes. So
thank you both so much for the time and space.
Welcome. That was really nice. Lovely to meet you. Truly.
Lovely to meet you.
Anybody can go to her website.
Yeah.
And we will put it up in our thing. So Shirley, did you want to talk about cognitive restructuring?
Well, I mean, we kind of hit all those points about how to rewire. And she really hit them too. The similar thing where where you bring up what is unconscious into conscious awareness. And is this what you still want?
Yeah.
And so and if you find yourself really stuck or really unhappy and life isn't happening the way it's happening, you want it to happen, I would certainly advise going to therapy or going to someone like Annie to help restructure those thoughts. Yeah.
Okay, great. And again, if you're trying to work out some other issues, journaling patterns help. Writing out your reoccurring thoughts or your emotions, behaviors to bring subconscious patterns into conscious awareness. And as Shirley has been talking, and as Annie's been talking, observe your triggers. Notice what activates you emotionally without immediately reacting, so you can begin to understand the pattern underneath it. And you would say, Shirley, slow it down, to see, start to observe. And one of the things too that I always love to do is an awareness-based meditation. You're using meditation not to escape, but to observe your thoughts and your internal state, but with a presence and neutrality there. And then language shifts, becoming intentional with how you speak, shifting from disempowering narratives that you may think and speak to a language that actually reflects your choice, awareness, and I would say your vibration as you start to change. Honor that you're changing, you're growing, and embody belief work, not just thinking about a new belief here, but feeling it in your body, practicing it until it becomes something your system actually recognizes as true with, like with Annie, with the muscle testing.
Yeah, that is key. That really is.
That is key. And so your life isn't being controlled by fate. Okay. It's being shaped by what you haven't yet made conscious.
Right. And what was learned can be unlearned and a new pattern relearned.
Right. Really. And not through force, but through awareness.
Right. I mean, the way I see it is psychology explains the pattern.
And the way I see it, Shirley, is spirituality expands the awareness. That's why I love to have like Annie on, and she was explaining, bringing another awareness.
Right. And that's what I love about the combination of what we both do, because the integration is what creates the
real change here, which is so important. And really, I want to thank everybody for joining us for this episode today of Psychology and the Soul.
Join us next week as we explore a powerful and often misunderstood topic,
which will be intuition versus hypervigilance. So learning how to tell the difference between your inner knowing and a fear-based response.
So interesting, because I know when we first, started to get to know each other, I would ask you all the time, how do you know the difference between intuition or just even wish fulfillment or a fear response?
Oh, yeah. I remember constantly saying that to you, but we'll cover that next week, everybody. And so join us next Tuesday for Psychology and the Soul. And you can join me Thursday for, I almost said Both Sides Now and Beyond. For Ask Me Anything on Thursday. I'll be doing the Vedic astrology for May, and I have a special guest on also on Thursday. So please join me. So take care, everybody. Thank you, Shirley. And thank you, Annie. That was a great show.
You, Kelly. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.